All right, let's talk all about minerals. So, this is a topic that I cover with all of my one-on-one clients and inside the Well Nourished program. So, I wanted to put together this free kind of mini workshop for you just to give you a better understanding of why they're so important, how they are applicable to maybe some of the symptoms or health struggles that you have right now, and also give you some things that you can start doing on your own right away whenever it comes to minerals, just to help you start feeling better. And I'll quickly introduce myself, and then I'm going to get rid of my video here. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Megan Crozier. I am a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, and within my practice, I work with women primarily focusing on hormonal issues, digestive issues, and really optimizing their energy, their metabolic function, their thyroid health, their periods, all of the things that actually make us feel really good on a day-to-day basis, so that we no longer have to stress out about our health or thoughts around food, and we can just live our life and feel like a normal person and actually enjoy the things that are really important to us. So that's a little bit about me. Now let's get into this topic. So what we're going to cover today is why minerals are essential for optimal health, how minerals impact essentially everything: your thyroid, your blood sugar, your periods, your weight, your fertility, your digestion. And these are also the areas that we focus on improving with our clients, and obviously why we incorporate minerals into our individualized plans. We're also going to talk about how to assess mineral status using signs and symptoms. So I'll go over some key kind of red flags or things you need to know if you're struggling with any of these. You definitely need to focus on minerals. And then I'll also go over the HTMA, which is the hair tissue mineral analysis that we like to use to actually look at some data around mineral status. And then I will give you some quick win strategies for actually replenishing minerals, things that you can start right away. So first, let's just touch on what minerals are so we can get on the same page. They are basically spark plugs for every single cell in the body. And so they work to kick off reactions that contribute to a variety of functions, like supporting bones and teeth, regulating gene expression. So when we're looking at any genetic components related to maybe autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's, or we're looking at things like PCOS or endometriosis, we have to look at how those genes actually express themselves. They're also important in supporting detox in the liver. The liver is important for a lot of functions in the body: blood sugar regulation, detoxification, skin health. But if we don't have the right amount or type of minerals to help that detox process, then things can start to slow down with our detox pathways. They're helpful for producing digestive juices like stomach acid and bile, which are actually important for helping us to break down and absorb what we eat. So if you're somebody who struggles with a lot of chronic digestive issues and you feel like you really can't tolerate a lot of foods and you can't break them down, you're feeling really bloated and gassy and maybe dealing with constipation or some sort of dysbiosis, maybe small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, minerals are going to help here. They also are important for hormone production. So hormones like thyroid hormones and sex hormones like progesterone, and also getting them into the cell. So we might produce adequate amounts of thyroid hormone, but if we're not getting into the cell, then we can't use them. And that's oftentimes, or could perhaps be why, if your thyroid labs look normal, but you're showing a lot of the signs and symptoms of hypothyroid, it could be more of a cellular issue. And then nerves and muscle contraction, which is what we, I think, typically think of when we hear the word minerals or electrolytes. So sodium and potassium and magnesium, those are responsible for nerve and muscle contraction. So speaking of, we have our macro minerals: sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, phosphorus. And we have a ton of trace minerals as well. This doesn't even cover all of them, but some examples and the big ones, especially as they relate to what we need for good functioning hormones and digestion, are going to be iron, manganese, copper, iodine, zinc, cobalt, sulfur, and selenium. And we do have to get these through food sources. I'll talk about why that can be more difficult in today's day and age, especially with depleted soil and stress. But we want to really be intentional about getting these in through our diet. So minerals are required for a lot of things, like I mentioned, but just to put it into perspective and tie it back to maybe what your main goals are and as it relates to your symptoms, minerals are needed for healthy thyroid function. So if you're struggling with hypothyroid or sluggish thyroid symptoms, like your hair is falling out, you're cold all the time, you're gaining weight, you have a lot of anxiety, maybe you have a lot of brain fog, low moods, and you just really don't feel like yourself. You're gaining weight despite eating exactly the same as you always did, and you're really lacking the energy and motivation to do things that you used to be able to do. Digestion, so obvious gut issues are going to be things like gas, bloating, constipation, which is anything less than 1 time a day. So we want to be having regular daily bowel movements 1 to 3 times a day, complete bowel movements. We don't want to have any loose stools or smelly gas or anything like that. And also other gut related issues, so maybe acne or psoriasis or dry skin, which also ties into thyroid function as well. So we're looking at digestion and gut as a whole. We need minerals to support that. And then sex hormones, so things like progesterone and estrogen and testosterone. You can take all of the different supplements in the world to try to boost one or the other, but if you're not getting the raw materials to create those hormones, then you're going to continue to just basically put a band-aid on your symptoms. They're really important for adrenal health, and when we're talking about adrenal health, we're talking about cortisol and stress hormones and how our body actually responds to and handles stressors. They're important for metabolism, so anything in the body that requires energy, essentially, we need to have a healthy metabolism. Metabolism overarches to just about every symptom as well. So when your metabolism slows down, so does everything else. The production of hormones slows down, the digestive process slows down, and that will lead to things like low mood, low energy, a lot of the thyroid related symptoms as well, inability to handle stressors. It can also lead to irregular periods, maybe heavy cycles, infertility, or difficulty getting pregnant. All of this ties back to the health of your metabolism. And then blood sugar regulation. So we need key minerals to help actually stabilize blood sugar and make sure that we are not becoming insulin resistant, making sure that even though we are eating carbohydrates, we're not getting into that insulin resistant state. We want to make sure we're getting a good balance of macronutrients and actually able to handle whether it's carbohydrates or fat or protein. We want to make sure that we're handling all of those well. And with blood sugar regulation too, we will see clients eating perfectly in terms of meal timing and macronutrients, but their labs still show either high fasting glucose or high insulin, and that's where we have to look more at the mineral picture to see what's missing there. If we cannot get nutrients into the cell, and if we cannot make energy, and we can't produce hormones, and we can't produce stomach acid, and we can't modulate stress, basically all of those things that go back to what I just broke down with thyroid health, metabolic health, digestion, hormones, etc., all of these things require minerals. And so if we can't do any of this, long-term healing and just feeling well on a day-to-day basis is going to be really, really challenging. And it makes sense when we put it this way. If we can't do any of these things, our body really isn't going to be functioning optimally, and it's almost like no wonder we have all of the symptoms that we do. So let's get into actually assessing your mineral status. How do you know if you have mineral imbalances or what is actually off? But first, I just want to touch on why minerals matter as it relates to your goals. So if you have goals around improving hormone symptoms like irregular cycles, PMS, maybe PCOS that you've been diagnosed with or you suspect, cyclical acne, thyroid issues, hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, anything around hormones, you have to look at mineral status. If you have weight loss resistance, so you're gaining weight despite not eating that much and exercising regularly, if you feel tired all the time, you have chronic fatigue, and maybe you also have difficulty sleeping, so it's kind of a double-edged sword where you can't sleep and then you also are tired all day long. You have skin issues, so acne, psoriasis, dry skin, eczema, digestive issues, poor immune function. Maybe you get sick often, or you get sick and then you feel like you just can't recover quickly enough. If you have any chronic conditions, things that feel very mysterious, nobody can figure out, you have all of these things that you feel like are wrong with you and just showing up in the shape and form of symptoms. If you have infertility or difficulty getting pregnant, and this obviously ties back to hormones as well, but there are lots of factors to consider when trying to conceive, and we have to look at minerals if you do have goals around trying to conceive, because we need to make sure that your body is really repleted of nutrients, and one of those main nutrient categories being minerals. The other reason I love talking about minerals is because it really helps to kind of reframe the way that we think about food. And especially as women, we're taught to eat less, exercise more. And when it comes to fixing any health symptoms, usually it involves a lot of deprivation and restriction and adding in a ton of supplements and doing these very overwhelming programs or protocols. The reason I like minerals is because instead of thinking about all these things, so thinking about what food should I remove, what foods do I need to avoid or restrict, what are all of these supplements that I need to take, what elimination diet do I need to do for, my autoimmune condition, or to get rid of my acne or fix my digestive issues. Or, maybe you're told to do more exercise longer or harder. Or just adding more to your plate, and not your literal plate, but your actual schedule, doing all of the things. Instead of thinking about it from this angle, we can actually think about making mineral status a top priority, which requires adding things in and really getting away from that deprivation and restriction mindset and approach. Because otherwise, if we don't have these minerals added in as a foundation, it's like trying to force a car to run without any gas in it. So you're pushing on the pedals so hard, trying to force it to go, but it doesn't have any gas in it in the first place. And that's like really trying to push your body and make it do all of these things that it just does not have the capacity to do because it's lacking these minerals. And when it comes to minerals, it's really not a matter of if you need them, but how much do you need of them, and also what is depleted. And I say even if you eat healthy, because we have women say, I already eat healthy foods. 9 times out of 10 though, their way of healthy eating and their approach is not aligned with a mineral-rich, nutrient-dense diet, or a diet that also supports blood sugar balance and keeps stress low in the body. So why is mineral depletion so common? I said it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of to what extent. And there's 3 reasons for this, and when we combine all 3, it makes a lot of sense. So stress increases the use of minerals. So stress in the body increases our use of minerals. We need more of them, and therefore increases mineral loss. So there's something called the magnesium burn rate, and basically you can figure out your magnesium burn rate based on how much stress you're under or how much stress your body is perceiving. And the more stress that you are burning through, the higher use of magnesium. And we see this on the HTMA test. Magnesium is actually, it'll show up really high, and that tells us that you're burning through a lot of it. And then we combine that, so today's stressful environment, stressful world, with soil mineral depletion. So the food that we get from the ground is no longer as rich in minerals as it used to be. And then lastly, we combine this with pharmaceuticals and just chemical toxins from everywhere. Things that aren't quite as in our control. Some of them we can reduce with air filters and water filters and things like that, but we are more inundated with toxins from air and food and water. So when we have this combination of an increased need for minerals, along with the decreased minerals from food, we're basically not getting as much while simultaneously burning through more of it. The other thing to consider with minerals is the season of life that you're in. So you might be in a season of life where you're burning through more minerals, mineral depletion is higher. The nice thing about the HTMA test is we can actually look at what specific minerals you're burning through, and so you know this going into another stressful season, and you can make sure that you're replenishing those minerals appropriately. But some examples, and some things we don't even think about, but these are often the stressors that, the way I describe it is kind of break the camel's back. So if you feel fine and then all of a sudden you start gaining weight, or you feel fine and then all of a sudden you're diagnosed with Hashimoto's or PCOS, or your periods go missing, usually it is one of these higher stressful seasons that deplete us of minerals. So pregnancy is one example, breastfeeding, and really the postpartum period. And I'm not just talking about the 6 weeks that you come back from the hospital. I'm talking about 1 year, 2 years postpartum, which includes breastfeeding, and then just getting back into a natural rhythm and routine with a new child. And so we have to look at that postpartum period as ultimately being a longer stressful season. Chronic digestive issues, this is hugely stressful on the body. And if you have digestive issues, you're also likely struggling to break down and absorb the nutrients that you need. Eating disorders or chronic dieters. So when people have a history of eating disorder where they have chronically restricted calories, this not only downregulates digestive function, which impairs the absorption of minerals, but we're also just not getting those minerals in the first place. And then chronic dieters as well, especially if we're eating a lot of really processed kind of diety foods that are meant to be low calorie, high fiber, low sugar, basically food-like products that can also deplete us of minerals. And then for this one, it's maybe somebody who we would look at and think of as quote-unquote healthy, but they're actually putting their body under a lot of stress. So endurance athletes and competitive athletes as well. So these types of athletes need to be more diligent about replenishing minerals and also just eating a more nutrient-dense diet, making sure they're getting enough calories. And for some people, especially today, they're doing the types of activities that an endurance athlete or competitive athlete would do, like CrossFit or marathon runs, but they're not replenishing themselves like a professional athlete would. And so this leaves us in a huge state of depletion. Recovery from major illnesses or surgery. So maybe you have a surgery that's planned or something happens and you get injured. That is definitely a stressful season, and it can take longer to recover if you don't have adequate minerals. And then high stress, and this can be mental, emotional, or physical stress. It could be high stress from a relationship or moving or work or changing jobs. The list can go on and on. With our clients and Inside Well Nourished, we actually look at evaluating your stress bucket and getting more clear on where those stressors are actually coming from, because sometimes it's not obvious to us, especially when we're just so used to it and we thrive off of go, 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 being in a fight or flight mode, checking off our to-do list, doing all of the things. As a type A perfectionist, that is me. I can totally relate to it. Even though our brain can handle it, our body tells us a different story. Okay, so signs and symptoms. This is the first really thorough assessment that you can go through. If you can check off one or more of these, then you need more minerals. Fatigue, muscle cramps or twitches, headaches, poor heat tolerance, irregular heartbeats, water retention, so you feel really puffy, and you also might notice this more when you have more sodium. Sodium is not the issue, it's actually an imbalance of other minerals in relationship to sodium, but you just might notice that you hold on to water really easily. Digestive symptoms, brain fog, sluggish thyroid, persistent low stomach acid, and if you haven't actually identified that you have low stomach acid, maybe you just feel like you have a hard time digesting meat, or you have a lot of reflux and heartburn. Those are two of the biggest red flags for low stomach acid. Or you have some sort of dysbiosis, bacterial overgrowth like SIBO or Candida. Poor stress resilience, so you feel like when things come at you, you just can't handle them the way you used to. You're more snappy and reactive. constipation, so that would qualify as anything less than 1 to 3 bowel movements per day. Peeing constantly and waking up to pee. You actually should not be running to the bathroom all the time if you're drinking a normal amount of water. You also shouldn't wake up to pee even at night. And then excessive thirst, or feeling like you need to drink a ton of water. So you're drinking lots and lots of water but still feeling thirsty or dehydrated. That's a huge red flag. And also drinking plain water without minerals isn't going to hydrate you because we're not actually getting that water into the cells. So that's something that I see a lot of people, especially who are more kind of health focused, they're actually drinking way too much water without the minerals, and that can lead to mineral imbalances. Okay, so how else can you assess? We have those signs and symptoms that I just went over, and each sign and symptom can also kind of relate to a specific mineral, so we can get a lot of clues there. For example, if you have low stomach acid, you probably need more sodium and potassium. And then we can also look at blood work, which looks at mineral cofactors. So we like to look at things like vitamin A and ceruloplasmin. We can also look at magnesium and potassium and sodium in the blood, but we really like to look at it at the tissue level as well. So that's where the HTMA comes in, and basically this is a hair tissue mineral analysis that uses a hair sample to help us assess our stress response and mineral status within the tissues. So this is what the HTMA test looks like. It's multiple pages, but just kind of highlighting some of the big pieces here. It basically is a measure of 3 months, a 3-month picture of your mineral status. So if you're in a more stressful season and we get it within that stressful season, we can see what minerals you're using up the most. It also gives us an indication of your toxic metal accumulation. So we have these toxic metals that can show up, and that tells us that for whatever reason they have accumulated and they are trying to leave the body. It gives us insight into how your individual body is responding to stress loads. So again, even if you're like mentally able to handle these stressors or you don't feel quote unquote stressed, your body tells a different story, and we can see this through the mineral imbalances. We can see when something is high or low, what that is actually indicating about the way your body is handling that interpretation of stress. And the other reason we really like the HTMA is because it's very easy to do. You can do it at home by taking that hair sample. It's painless, obviously. You're not having to draw blood or anything like that. And then it's also relatively inexpensive as far as functional testing goes. With the HTMA, we look at a couple of different areas, and we give you all of this with our HTMA interpretation as well. So if you do an HTMA test, whether it's within a one-on-one package or within Well Nourished or just an HTMA specific package, which we also offer, we'll break these things down for you in your interpretation and your review. But we first have the metabolic type. So the HTMA will tell us if you are a slow type or a fast type. And this isn't talking about if you have a slow metabolism or a fast metabolism. It actually tells us more about the state of stress that you're in and how your nervous system, your thyroid function, and your adrenals are doing, how they're actually performing as it relates to your minerals. So as an example, we have a slow 1, and this slow 1 type, this is actually the most common one that we see. It means that everything is slowed down. So sluggish thyroid, slow adrenals, meaning you can't really respond to stress as well, and nervous system are slow. So you're basically stuck in that parasympathetic state, which parasympathetic is our rest and digest state. We do want to be there, but it's because your body is so burnt out that it's been in fight or flight for so long, and now it's almost stuck in this state of chronic fatigue and unable to handle stressors. We actually, when it comes to the nervous system, want to move between sympathetic and parasympathetic very easily. We want to go between those different states. And then, of course, we look at minerals that are high or low. We always start with the macro minerals. So we look at calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. These 4 can tell us if you are in an active stressed state or if you're in a burnout sort of state. And these 4 minerals really set the tone for what the rest of our minerals do. So the nice thing is that by working on these 4 and rebalancing them, we can see improvements with other minerals that play a role in things like thyroid hormone, adrenal health, and our overall metabolic health. And then we have a section for mineral ratios. And this basically connects minerals within the different body systems. So we look at your nervous system, your blood sugar control. So if this is high or low, we know if you trend to be more hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic if you have chronically high blood sugar and this is leading to inflammation, or if you have a lot of low blood sugar episodes and this leads to more stress in the body. It also tells us about your adrenal function, again, how well you're able to produce cortisol and how well your brain can communicate with your adrenal glands to appropriately respond to stress, and then your thyroid health as well. So what can we actually do with the HTMA data? What do we actually do when we see this test and we look at all these different ratios? So again, it helps us to understand what stage of stress you're in and actually pinpoint if you're in an acute or if you're in a burnout state. And understanding for yourself too how you react to stress. Do you react by going into more of that fight or flight state, or do you get more into that parasympathetic state where you're just feeling burnt out? And this also tells you what you need more of. So it can tell you, do you need to ramp up magnesium? And do we need to do this through maybe some strategic supplementation? It can also tell us if we need to get more intentional with sodium. Do you need to be adding more sea salt to your food and your water? Or potassium. Do you need to be adding in more potassium-rich sources of food like coconut water or potatoes? And then it also tells us how you are doing on a cellular level with your thyroid health. Again, we see a lot of clients dealing with hypothyroid symptoms like low energy and constipation, low mood, weight gain, hairs falling out, cold all the time, low body temperatures, and their thyroid labs look normal, or maybe their thyroid labs didn't look normal and they were put on thyroid medication, but they still don't feel any better. This is where we have to look at cellular thyroid health. It tells us how is your digestive capacity. So again, are you low in things like stomach acid, or you're not producing the bile that we need to actually break down fats, or the bile that we need to help carry out excess hormones out of the body. And then also these ratios and just overall the data from the HTMA can tell us more about your energy and your vitality. So let's go over some common HTMA scenarios, and these are what we see with the labs we do with clients, and we always take it into the context of their symptoms and their goals. So we still have to look into your health history, what a day in the life looks like, what you're doing currently nutrition-wise, what your lifestyle looks like, sleep, movement, etc. But these are some of the common scenarios that we see, and then I'm just giving a brief example of an action plan. Obviously, this would need to be customized to you. So we have the picture of chronic stress with HTMA tests, and this is going to be a slow metabolic type and basically what we see with the minerals. So you're going to feel exhausted. That's one of the biggest symptoms. You feel like you're in that burnt out state. You're going to have a poor stress tolerance, poor stress resilience. You have maybe slower progress with protocols, whatever that's for. Maybe it's for fixing digestion, losing weight, or rebalancing your hormones to fix your periods. Poor tolerance to magnesium. So if you've ever tried supplementing with magnesium, maybe you notice it makes you a little bit more anxious. And this basically means that you need more sodium and potassium support first. And then with the minerals on the test, this shows up as overall low mineral status. So I won't go back to show you the chart, but basically with those bar graphs, they're all on the lower end. And this is a super common picture in the postpartum period. So maybe you've had kids, and again, it can be 1 to 2 years postpartum. Also, if you're somebody who's been doing a lot of long-term health work, you've tried a lot of things, you've worked with a lot of other practitioners, and if you have persistent gut issues that no food eliminations or supplements are resolving. So an action plan for this would be minimizing stress inputs, getting clear on where those are coming from. Strategic repletion of calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. We like to do this with food, starting with topical options for magnesium and seeing how you respond. And then this is super bio-individual. I am not making this as a customized recommendation by any means, but sometimes we need to look at supporting cofactors. So outside of the minerals, things like B6 or vitamin K or boron. Another common picture we see is actually being stuck in that fight or flight mode. So this can look like feeling wired but tired, having poor sleep quality, waking up between 2 and 4 a.m., feeling anxious, irritable, maybe you get headaches or migraines, allergies, these can be seasonal allergies or just all of the time, heart palpitations. And we see this a lot in some of the most commonly, we see it in the kind of type A perfectionists. So high performing, whether that's in sports or in their career, maybe they have big roles at work, or they are just super competitive and they thrive off of a to-do list. They thrive off of go, 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 checking things off, getting good grades in school, making sure that they're really being the best that they can be. So an example of an action plan for this, again, we're minimizing those stress inputs, figuring out where stress is coming from, creating a nervous system plan. So really putting in specific nervous system practices, and we provide this as a resource for our clients, giving us actual tools here for nervous system support. Adding in calcium and magnesium, getting sodium and potassium specifically through the diet, and then really working on digestive basics. So with digestion, we always start with bitters and we start with good meal hygiene. So making sure that you're really chewing your food thoroughly and you're not eating on the go. And then the last picture we have is the sluggish metabolism. So this looks and feels like a lot of those hypothyroid symptoms: fatigue, constipation, weight loss resistance, brain fog, slow healing. So if you get a cut or a bruise, it takes a long time to heal. Cold hands and feet, low basal body temperature, hair loss, and likely some bone or dental issues. This is super common in women with a hypothyroid diagnosis or just those hypothyroid symptoms. And we also see it a lot with chronic dieters, so people who have restricted for a long period of time. Sometimes it's unintentional as well, so they're just chronically under eating. Or maybe they're a chronic dieter and they've lost weight and regained it over and over again, kind of felt like they've always struggled with their weight a little bit. So action plan is going to be to minimize stress inputs. Of course, we always start with that. Creating those nervous system practices and incorporating those regularly. Getting a lot of potassium from food sources. Getting K2 to help lower calcium in the tissue and actually put it back into the bones and teeth. This is something I won't get too much into, but we don't want calcium to be high in the tissue, and if it is, we can see this on the HTMA test. It's what we call a calcium shell, and we want to work to get rid of that. Also, another thing that can throw off calcium is vitamin D supplementation. It can also throw off magnesium, so consider pausing that if you have been supplementing with with vitamin D long term. We don't recommend that. And then supporting magnesium appropriately and getting sodium through the diet. So hopefully that kind of helps you to see just a basic example of common scenarios we see and action steps that we can incorporate, in addition to obviously the nutrition foundations around what we teach our clients. So blood sugar balance, eating adequate calories, meal hygiene, supporting your digestion, all of those things with nutrition, and then of course the lifestyle piece as well. All right, so how can you actually start improving mineral status? Let's give you some easy steps that you can start with. So step one is to stop the leak. If we're working on replenishing minerals, we have to plug the leaks that are causing those minerals to get depleted in the first place. So this is where we actually assess our stress and try to change what is within our control. So things like chronic under eating, skipping meals, maybe you're not eating breakfast, maybe you're riding the blood sugar roller coaster and you have a lot of cravings and hunger and fatigue and you're crashing at 3 p.m. And then build resilience strategies. So for the things that you cannot change, you have to build up your stress resiliency. And this is where we look at nervous system support, things like guided meditation, actually processing feelings, processing trauma, journaling, doing any sort of co-regulation where you're hugging your pet or your partner. There are lots of tools here that you can incorporate to make sure that you're building up your stress resilience. Cleaning up any home products or beauty products that might have toxins in them, and then also evaluating other toxins. So poor quality supplements, which we see a lot of that, and we use Fullscript, which is a supplement dispensary that has practitioner grade supplements. And then looking at your water quality and your air quality. So consider using a good water filter and a good air filter. Step 2 is looking at food sources. So focusing on what to add in. Some examples would be things like quality unrefined sea salt that has all the trace minerals. I really like the Redmond's sea salt brand. Potassium-rich foods are fantastic. So fruits, root vegetables, coconut water, coconut, potatoes, butternut squash, aloe vera, bee pollen are all some good examples. Sodium, magnesium, and calcium. Again, looking at all of these through food sources, and we customize this a little bit more with where to get this from and in what amounts based on your HTMA or just based on your symptoms alone. But a great place to start without any level of customization is just incorporating mineral mocktails. So a very basic mineral mocktail recipe is going to combine sodium, magnesium, potassium, and vitamin C for your adrenals. And so this is an easy recipe you can start with where you're just doing 8 to 10 ounces of coconut water. You can do a pinch of sea salt, maybe like a quarter to half a teaspoon, a squeeze of lemon or lime juice. You can also do fresh orange juice or pomegranate juice, and then a good quality magnesium powder. Or you can add some aloe vera juice to there if you want to do something that's not in powder form. Some examples of just generally high mineral rich foods, and this is a perfect example of why just eating quote unquote clean isn't necessarily going to check off all of your mineral boxes. I'm not going to read through all of these, but I will let you screenshot this if you are watching. You can see some different examples of where we can get really high quality mineral rich foods. And then step 3 is supplementation. And we're very picky about our supplements and what to actually add in here because there are a lot of electrolyte powders and things out there that have a lot of added ingredients. So we like to start with food-based powders. Bumbleroot is a fantastic brand. Jigsaw is another really good one. They have a pickleball and they have an adrenal cocktail mix. And then Ravy is another one that I really enjoy. Magnesium, so we need this for lots of reasons. Some of the things that we see it work well with clinically are improving periods, decreasing cramping, and improving sleep. It's basically like our anti-stress mineral. We can do it in topical form, so you can do a magnesium spray, or you can do glycinate, and there are different forms of this, whether it's a pill, a liquid, or a powder. One that we really like is called MagSooth, and that's by the Jigsaw brand. And then trace minerals. These are really easy to add to your water. You can just do a few drops, especially if you're drinking a lot of filtered water throughout the day. You want to make sure that you're pairing that with minerals. So those are the 3 steps. And to kind of figure out if you're on the right track, because you're obviously not measuring your minerals every single day from an HTMA or from blood work, we can basically go off of your symptoms. So you'll start to see your biofeedback improve. And when I talk about biofeedback, I'm talking about the way your body is communicating with you. So your sleep, your hunger, your cravings, your energy, your digestion, your mood, your recovery from workouts. Those are some of the big ones to pay attention to. So if you're on the right track, you'll notice your energy starts to improve. You're no longer crashing at 3 p.m. You're no longer waking up to pee at night or just peeing all day long. Less headaches, less puffiness and inflammation and fluid retention, better digestion, and also you're no longer feeling like you're thirsty all the time. So I want you to just kind of start thinking about where can you add more minerals into the day. Do you need to add minerals in through the mineral mocktail to start? Can you do it through some food sources? Where is there room for opportunity with adding in minerals into your day? one of the exercises we do with clients, in addition to giving them actual, of course, examples of what a day-to-day look like, is actually building out your nourishing day. So figuring out how it looks and feels within your lifestyle and your preferences, and tying it closely back to what your specific goals and health symptoms are. So with our clients, we always start with minerals to help us see immediate improvements in symptoms. And the biggest ones being what I just reflected upon with the energy, the sleep, no longer running to the bathroom, no longer crashing at 3 p.m. So those are the big ones to really pay attention to. If you want some more examples or ideas for incorporating minerals, then DM me on Instagram. Just send me the word minerals, and I'll send you our free mineral rich smoothie guide. So this is basically our smoothie guide that incorporates a lot of high mineral rich foods in the form of potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium, starting with those macro minerals. And they also taste amazing as well. And we give you brand recommendations in there for protein powders and things like that. So I wanted to share an example of an action plan and what we actually walk through with our clients, again, based on their health history, their story, what got them here, and addressing their root cause. So we have to figure out what their root cause is to have a more targeted approach, which is why one size fits all recommendations don't make sense, whether it's for taking a probiotic for digestion or taking a supplement to boost progesterone for your periods. We can't just look at supplements alone, and we can't just look at following a one size fits all diet either. So the first step is to actually assess. We figure out what your goals look like, what season of life you're in, what your nutrient status looks like, and we do this to just get better insight into where you need more support. We use functional labs as well, so we do the HTMA, we do functional blood work. For some clients as well, if they are a little bit more advanced or they've tried a lot of things, we look into deeper hormone testing, we look into maybe some gut testing as well. And then also determining your individual triggers. So what is depleting you of minerals, and also what is making your symptoms worse. Usually it's things like under eating and over exercising and putting your body under unnecessary stressors. So we dig deeper into that as well. And then we move into actually focusing on nourishing your body. Blood sugar balance is a huge missing piece for a lot of women, so we always start there, and we approach our meals, our meal timing, our meal composition through the lens of how can I balance my blood sugar. We also work on optimizing nutrients, figuring out what we need to add in, and then of course customizing our mineral needs. And then support. So not only getting support, obviously, with making these changes and incorporating them into your life, but supporting other areas. So areas that influence the way your body functions as a whole will be things like your gut health, your stress resilience, which is where we look at the nervous system support, and your liver health. We need liver health for good digestion, for hormone balance, for skin health, lots of things. And so we can't overlook it. And then lastly is just customizing even further. So once you understand your body and how it works, and you have more insight into what it needs, you can get really specific with nutrients, the types of movement and exercise that your body needs. A lot of women are doing the wrong type of exercise, especially when it comes to improving thyroid health, body composition, hormonal health. We look at stress resilience even further to figure out what does that look like long-term, incorporating it into an actual routine, and sleep schedules as well, looking at your morning routine, your evening routine, your light exposure, circadian rhythms, things like that. So we get much more customized based on what stage of your health journey you're in and what your goals are actually looking like. So something to consider is, what action will you take after watching this, taking in the information? I want you to actually decide what you're going to do with it. Instead of just collecting more and more information, we want to actually take action. And it's not a matter of if you need to focus on minerals, it's just a matter of when and how and what guidance you want around that, and also figuring out how it fits into a bigger picture plan. So if you want help with that, you can scan this QR code. It will take you to a link to apply for a free nourishment audit. We will go over your symptoms, your goals, what you've tried so far, and really where you are on your health journey. And then we'll also talk about what it looks like to get support, what that customized plan might look like for you, and how we can support you with that, whether it's within our one-on-one program or within our Well Nourished program. We're happy to talk more about how we can help. All right, so I hope this was all helpful for you. I hope that you got a lot out of this free workshop. And if you are on Instagram and you DM me, I will send you that mineral rich smoothie guide. So I'm at Meg Crozier NTP. You can find me there if you're not following me already. And that is all I have. So I hope that this was helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram or email me. Hopefully I will see you inside one of these free nourishment audits. So scan that code, grab that application link, and I will talk to you then. All right, bye.